Hey guys, so like we've done the other debates, why don't we start out with each of you taking about a minute to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit more about your candidacy. John, why don't you go first?
Okay. All right. Hello, my name is John Izzo. I'm running for the president of BSG. A little bit about me. As some of you probably do know, I'm a first-year student here. I'm the president of the class of 2015, as well as a member of BSG. Currently, I'm an at-large representative. I sit on the Student Affairs Committee, headed by Alan Wong. And in addition to that, I'm also a three-sport athlete. I run the cross-country team and both the indoor and outdoor track teams. So that's a little bit of bio on me, I guess. The president of BSG is the guiding force of the entity as a whole. And through that, what they decide to do, how they set the tone for the year that they are in charge of leading, really sets the stage for what BSG is going to pursue, what programs they're going to really take on, what issues they're going to set aside, and that really interests me. I feel that in addition to really needing to be able to delegate and work things out, work with people, the president really needs to be able to get people excited and be prepared to take on anything, even if it means taking on the administration, as long as they're working in the interests of the students. And I feel that the fact that I stand here before you as a first-year student, unafraid to take on someone who's a few years older than me, shows that I'm unafraid to challenge the status quo and work for things like that. And so I hope that together we can make BSG and then therefore the whole voting community a better place. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Dani, take it away.
Hi, I'm Dani Chediak. I am presently serving as your Vice President of Student Organizations, and I hope those of you who have worked with me think that I'm doing a good job. I'm currently feeling comfortable asking you to put your faith in me again and vote for me for President of Bowdoin Student Government, because I feel like not only do I love the job, not only do I love the work that I've been doing here for 3 years, but I have a pretty great perspective, and I've been honing it through different experiences on all different types of different places on campus. I was president of Burnett House. I've served on the House Selection Committee, so I understand the IHC, I understand the houses, I understand res life to some degree. I've been working on the alcohol team, I've been on the SAFC, I've been on the Student Web Advisory team, and not only that, I was looking at what I said to you all last year when I stood in front of you and asked you to vote for me for Student Orgs Chair. And I looked at my two platforms, my huge platform things of bringing you a better calendar and bringing you online resources, and I thought to myself, okay, check. I did what I told you I was going to do. We have online resources. Brian and I worked together to bring some of those. He did some of them on his own. We merged our two different things, so now we have a great SIFC document that's linking back to a programming guide that I've created and maintained. And then we also have a new version of the Orbit that'll be coming out in 2 weeks that'll have clubs administrations. For any of you who are club leaders, you know that we work with a list server that's pretty outdated. We won't be working with that anymore. You'll have an Orbit calendar that you can customize. It'll have your events. It'll have events that you are interested in and have selected as events that you want to see from certain clubs. So it's just going to completely change club life. So I'm asking you to vote for me for BSG president because I think the experience that I've had and my track record kind of speaks for itself.
Thank you both. So what do you consider the biggest shortcoming of Bowdoin student government, and how would you fix it? Both of you.
Who's first?
Dani.
Okay. Basically, I think BSG has a little bit of an issue in maintaining a standing relationship with both the students and the administration. So this has been touched upon by a couple different people, but definitely Chris highlighted that we have a lot of services that people don't know about because we're not constantly advertising, we're not constantly maintaining our website. Alan has been working on a new website and that'll do a better job of that, but we can even just poster campaigns, simple things like that. Right now I'm entertainment manager of the pub. I understand how to get word out about events. Then there's also the issue that people don't know who we are. I'm constantly asking my friends to give me things about BSG and complain to someone who's gonna relay it to someone rather than just say, yeah, you know what, that does suck. Instead, I'd rather say, this is why it exists, or this is how we're working to change it, or hey, I didn't even think about that, this is what we're gonna do to try to change it. And I think that that's what BSG members need, the kind of attitude they need to carry about themselves. And then at the same time, the members need to not only be communicating with students, but with administrators at all times. We come up with a great idea for something we want dining to do, and we go up to dining and we say, hey, give us free meal passes. We don't talk to dining and say, hey, what are you thinking about doing? Oh, you're thinking about doing fast track? We're gonna collect some student input. We're gonna help you out. We're gonna help you start that program and advertise it and work with you on that project as well, rather than simply asking you for things when we need it. I wanna maintain a relationship with the administration constantly so that we're hearing the ideas that they have, giving them feedback on those ideas. If there's something that they're talking about in the faculty committees, like right now they're talking about credit for internships, the BSG should be making statements about these things. We should be collecting information and saying things about it. And I think that's our biggest shortcoming. And I've already started to work on changing it. I have meetings with administrators before I even set my platform to make sure that the things that I want to do are at least somewhat feasible. I have meetings set up throughout this week. I'm working with administrators already, talking to higher ups and trying to make sure that we have a relationship that isn't just one way, that we're constantly in this communication with the student body and with the administration. And that's about it.
All right. On a similar note, actually, I feel that the strength of BSG or any student organization should come from the students as a whole. And unfortunately, here at Bowdoin, it doesn't necessarily do that. As Dani mentioned, we can be doing programs and they can be great, or they can be, some students might not like them, but we either never try to get the input or aren't successful in doing that. And I feel that we do need to reach out more. The branding of things is an interesting way to do that. I think Alan has done a good job. If you've seen the posters for the Uncommon Hour, I was putting some up today, they have, right at the top you see BSG, and I think that's important. So okay, BSG is doing this. And at the same time, then BSG isn't doing that. And for better or for worse, it shows the students what's being taken on and what isn't. And I feel as though our meetings are almost secretive in a way. Sure, they're open to the public, but I've seen one person from the public come in all year to say anything, or even listen, which I think is a big problem. The Orient does a good job reporting, but I mean, if you're in the room, it's a totally different situation. So I think the way you get people in the room is providing some information on what's actually going on. Our minutes are posted online. Our secretary does a great job of that. But that's a lot to read if you just want to, get a brief understanding of what was happening. I think that the responsibility should be delegated to someone to create maybe a paragraph, 4 or 5 sentences that describes what actually happened in the meeting, and post that online, and so people can say like, oh, BSG is working on this, or why isn't BSG working on that, and that way bring people in. And possibly also move BSG, I guess you could say, into the 21st century. Create a working good Facebook page or a Twitter account, or use the new orbit to create a sense that it's actually news, that what we're doing is important. And so it could pop up on your newsfeed like, this is what happened, or BSG wants to do this, and through that try to gain more input. I know surveys aren't always the most popular thing on campus, but we do get good results from them, and I think it's important to find out what the students do and don't want, and through that, gain the support of the students so that we may take on bigger problems. Because the way that BSG is right now, it does some great things, but often it's just up and down votes, yes or no, unanimous, and I think things at college are a little more like divisive than that, and I think we shouldn't be afraid to take on the administration if we have to, if that's what the students want, and bigger issues. And I think the way you do that is through the support of the students as well.
Thanks, guys. While you're only president for 1 year at a time, where do you hope to see the BSG 5 years from now? What role will it have on campus, and what do you intend to do next year to make your vision a reality? And we'll start with John. 10 seconds or less.
All right, I guess it kind of connects to what I said before. 5 years from now, I would hope to see BSG as a much powerful force on campus. Good, all right. So right now, the BSG doesn't have that much power, in my opinion, as it could. I'd like to see BSG engaging students more, as I said, and really be a force that students feel they can come to and say like what problems they have, what they want addressed, and it actually can get done. Issues as far ranging as possibly changing the fact that we don't have a double minor to something as minor as the fact that the mail center can't send out emails or anything like that. So I'd like to see the power of BSG grow, and as I said before, I think the way you do that is engaging the students, because ultimately that's how you get input, and that's how you get support and power to do what the students want.
Thanks, John. Dani?
So along the same lines, I really want to correct what I was just talking about, which I said was the biggest failure, and I think some of the other things that we can do is BSG needs to stay on top of technology. I want BSG in the future to have someone within the team, most likely the VP of Facilities, also staying on top of Facebook, Twitter, our webpage. We need to have a very interactive way of communicating with students, because we're no longer in the world where people are going to necessarily put something into a comment box. We need to have, as we now have in our BSG website, thank you Alan Wong, we have a comment section. We should have an interactive platform where we explain, hey, these are the things we all ran on, and these are the things that we now can do. I'd also like us to have an Orient article written by members of the BSG Weekly. Sorry, Orient.
Thank you, Dani. So John, one of the reasons that BSG has this constitutional requirement that anybody running for BSG president previously serves as a member of BSG is that experience is, I'd say, almost more than necessary for the job. You need to have institutional memory, really, to be able to actually have a sense for what are terrible ideas and what are good ones, what are doable ideas and what are ideas that sound cool, but administrators probably won't bite. And so, I guess a doubt that I have that I'd like to hear you address is kind of how would you go about really working to learn a lot about the school that you probably haven't in the past year? How are you going to find out who are the key power brokers to support your initiatives in the faculty and the administration? How are you going to actually be more than a happy-go-lucky, oh yeah, we'll do that, and then nothing gets done, sort of BSG president? We've had some presidents that have been very, I would say, easygoing, relaxed. Mike Dooley comes to mind, great guy, but not exactly a guy who necessarily gets things done. And so what I'm asking is, how are you going to kind of avoid falling into that and be somebody who can be friendly and yet actually be a doer?
All right, that's definitely a major concern that a lot of people have, I think. And the way that I would think I can address that is to say that, while I probably do not have the amount of experience as Dani, that's evident, she's been here for 2 more years than I have, but in the year that I've been here, I've served on 2 somewhat distinct bodies. As I said, I served as the class president, and I think through that I've had an interesting way of viewing the planning aspect, how you can get people excited on events, that side of things, which I think is important for BSG. But on the other side, working on the Student Affairs Committee and being represented, I've been able to work on more tangible items, and I feel that through that I've gained a good amount of experience. And if you put it together, I've met quite a few of the deans, and I've spoken to them, I've worked with them, I've helped Alan set up these Uncommon Hour events. I've talked to Dean Amaya about multicultural events on campus, and worked with several other deans. And I feel as though I have enough experience at its core, and I have the rest of this year, and hopefully if I was elected, Derek would take me under his wing and help me out a little bit there as well. But at the same time, I feel as though while experience is very necessary, being president is a role that requires not just experience. You have to be able to delegate, and I feel as though it's an unfair question or an unfair statement to say that I'm just going to choose, just shoot for something and not understand what the students want or what is a good idea or a bad idea. And I think the way you do that is a dialogue, and the president isn't a dictator. I would have vice presidents and other people, and not to mention the entire school body, to bounce ideas off. And so I feel as though experience, I have enough to be able to lead BSG next year.
All right, sounds good, John. Dani, would you consider yourself a schmoozer? The reason I ask is because one of the things that I think often helped John Connolly and Derek get things done is that it wasn't just about, hey, we're the students, we'd like to make this initiative happen, but it was actually the ability to kind of grease the wheels of the Bowdoin bureaucracy. And so what I'm wondering is, you're somebody who's incredibly energetic, who's a real go-getter, and that's awesome. But I'm just wondering, like, when it comes to actually this ability to really kind of get people on board, how do you feel like you're going to do that?
Well, I'd say that this is one of those times where I feel like experience and my leadership experiences in the past have really helped out. I went into this year as the new pub entertainment manager, and Richard or Adina could tell you that I came in and I said, on the first pub night, we're going to have 2 bars, one on the upstairs, one on the downstairs. The second bar is going to be, have these drinks being served, and we're going to have a band and a DJ and this and that, and we're going to use this door instead of that door. And it was chaos. I was demanding. I wasn't asking. I wasn't understanding how there are certain fire codes. There are things that can't be done. There are impossibilities. There are, limits to spaces and limits to how far someone's willing to go. There are limits to just how many people we can have working in the pub on a night. And it's something that I've taken now into the rest of the time that I've been serving as VP of Student Orgs, and as I've been working with dining, and I've been working on other projects with the BSG, and been taking to other administrators, understanding there are limits, understanding there are impossibilities, that not every fight, even if it sounds really cool to have polar points be usable downtown as part of the One Card program, that's not possible. That's not something that's worth fighting for, and you need to understand that as president. And as much as I can say I failed in that in the past, and I think I failed in that when I was president of Burnett House, this year, I think I learned that lesson, and I think I really improved my leadership capacities, and I want to take that into next year.
Thanks, guys. We're going to turn this just a little bit more positive here. What issue next year, as president, would you be most excited to take on? Dani, go for it.
Wow. So I thought you were going to ask most doable. That was the question we were given, and this is a little bit of a change. So for what I'm actually most excited to do, which I also think is very doable, is I really want to bring test prep on this campus. I really want to lower the cost of that. And as much as there are some great things I think we can do in student life, and as much as I'm very passionate about student life, at the end of the day, we're all at Bowdoin for the academic program here. There are reasons other than that why we might have chosen Bowdoin over Middlebury, etc. But we're here to get an education, and part of that education for some of us is to continue it, to go on to medical school, to go on to law school, to go on to some type of grad school, business school. And unfortunately, there's no consistent offering of LSAT courses, MCAT courses, GRE, GMAT courses on campus, and I think that that's a huge fault. One of the top law schools that Bowdoin students end up going to is University of Maine, and I don't mean to knock that school, but I think that we can probably get some kids into better schools, and I think that's an important feature of Bowdoin College, and I think that it's something that the administration is willing to work on. It's all about finding the resources, finding the finances. It's not a fight that we're going to have. We're all on the same page. We want students to be going to great schools once they leave here if they want to continue their education. It's about moving things around and working with the different departments to find out how we're going to make a project like this work. And I think that's why I'm excited about it, because I feel like no one's going to say this is a bad idea. It's just about making it happen and finding the ways to make it happen and basically problem solving.
Thanks, Dani. John?
I guess the thing that I'm most excited about is it's kind of a bundle, but it's working on the small issues at Bowdoin. I think that here, I think we'd all agree we have it pretty good. It's a great school, and in a way, there's some major issues which I would have addressed if the question was as we've been given it before. But I guess the ones I'm more excited about is just to fix like the minor annoyances. And two come to mind. They're both fairly, I would think, easy to overcome, and I'm excited about that. The first being the fact that we can't get emails or any kind of notification from getting not mail, but packages at the mail center, and I think that'd be something that could be easily overcome and, in a way, in a small part, improve the lives of a Bowdoin student. The computer is already set up to take in the name of the student who has a package and print out the form and the stickers. It'd be very easy to just funnel that into an email. And on that same note, provide a service in the library to be able to stow laptops if you had to leave the library for a moment or something like that. I know we're working on that already, but I don't know if it's hit a snag or not. And I really think that should be something that shouldn't be that hard to do and get that through, because I feel like just fixing the small things would make the life of a Bowdoin student more convenient and I guess more enjoyable in the long run.
Thanks, John. This question's for Dani. So this year, the class of 2012 has taken on a project to raise the rates at which seniors and young alumni contribute to the college. Because when it comes to funding all these proposals, when it comes to funding Bowdoin in general, money is the name of the game. And one of the best things that we can do to not only increase the quality of the Bowdoin education, but increase the prestige of the college is to raise the number of alumni who give and the amount of money that they give. And so what I'm wondering is, in light of what the senior class has been doing this year to increase giving on campus, how could BSG and how could you, as one of the key leaders in your class, work to help increase giving among seniors when you're president, and building the infrastructure that will continue this trend?
I have to say, as much as I care about Bowdoin's legacy, this has never been one of my most important issues. I am meeting with Pam Phillips from development soon, and I'd love to talk to her about what she thinks we can do. But the project that just got started by the seniors is brand new. I'd love to work with that and extend that, but I think that's mainly up to the class president. I'm running for BSG president because I want to work on school-wide issues, and although this is contributing to the school, I think that this should be a senior class project, and I'd love to be one of, what do they call, the class coordinators?
Class HS.
I'd love to serve as one of those and help out in my class in that way, but I really want to work on school-wide issues that are taking place at Bowdoin, and we'll be here once we leave.
When it comes to the Student Activities Office, how do you think Bowdoin student government can improve I'd say, relationships within the Student Activities Office to ensure that things are even more smoothly planned than they have been in the past?
You're looking at me, so is
Yep.
this for me?
Yep.
Are you talking about between like the administration and the student activities and club leaders,
Well,
or?
let me put it this way. So this year, I've kind of noticed that, in part because of the work that you and Brian Kim have done, things have functioned a lot better, it would seem, in terms of communicating with club leaders, in terms of making sure that events are advertised properly. And so what I'm wondering is, how are you going to ensure that the work that you and Brian have done this year is continued?
Well, luckily, Brian will be the new me, and I'll be working with him on the Student Web Advisory team to continue to bring the Orbit further to date. Alan DeLong and Nate Hinz in Student Activities generally serve as advisors to the Bowdoin student government, and I tend to walk into that office and call that office home to some degree, and I plan on continuing to work with them with a lot of different things. One of the really small things that we're planning on doing that I really have been pushing for is that, well, this year the Student Activities Office hired a poster designer for themselves, and that's why Student Activities has now has been branded, and Alex Piggott is a great designer and has been making some great posters, and you've been seeing them around campus, and that's, I think, really been helping attendance at events. BSG is going to be, if the new president decides, BSG will be hiring another poster designer for themselves so that every single student organization has that resource available, a very talented poster designer. They can choose to have someone else, but every event will have a poster design for it, and all of those will be going up, and that's just a small other thing besides, the technological stuff. Some of us still like that visual representation of events. That's another thing that we're going to hopefully be doing to improve club life.
All right, so this one's for John. So one of the biggest issues that I've seen with Bowdoin student government for the last 4 years now is we can take on a lot of physical things, like we can make physical institutional changes, or at least we can try to. But some of the stuff we get bogged down is cultural changes. There's like less tangible things. And in the same regard, and what sort of mixes these two things are the social houses and the social culture on campus. As a first-year student and as soon to be a sophomore, the social houses are very much a part of your life, and they don't really extend to the juniors and the seniors, and they can be a greater asset on campus. I'm just curious to hear your stance on the social houses, and how do you think they could probably be better utilized by the student body and by the college administration?
All right, well, I guess tomorrow I'll find out if I'm in a social house or not. Probably a good thing I'm answering this after they made decisions. But I think that the social houses they obviously play an important role on campus, especially for underclassmen. But at the same time, as they do a good job, but I feel that there needs to be a reassessment of what their purpose on campus should be. Should they continue to be, for the most part, institutions just for parties and the occasional academic event housed there? Or should we open them up to not just weekend parties and these giant, campus-wide dance parties? Should it be a turn towards something more like smaller gatherings? I know from talking to people and being the president of the first year class that a lot of I can't speak for everyone, but a lot of times students enjoy maybe going to their house before they go to the big campus-wide. They enjoy the first part of the night more than the second, because in a way it can be more fun to hang out and not have this pressure of drinking and blasting music. And I feel there needs to be a shift away from one massive party a weekend to I guess decentralized campus life and to the individual houses. And I feel that in that way you'd also have the opportunity to incorporate upperclassmen more, because a giant dance party may not be the most attractive thing to students who are on a team or have a group of friends that they can gather with and do something on the weekend nights. I find that a lot of times upperclassmen, ones I know from the team, get together and it's small functions. And it seems to me that if they're interested in these small kind of functions and not these large campus-wides, maybe that's what the college houses should be turning towards to better make it more enjoyable for both underclassmen and upperclassmen.
Thanks, John. One more question for you here. When it comes to kind of the ability of BSG to encourage students to change their behavior, and you talked about the culture a little bit, how do you think more students could become less apathetic? How could you get more students interested in actually not just talking to their BSG reps maybe occasionally, but how do you actually plan to try to get students more involved in the work of BSG and becoming more active on campus?
I think that it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy that we have going right now. It's we say no one wants to come to these meetings, they're not interested, and so then no one ends up coming, and they don't tell anyone. We don't really try to push for anyone to come, and I think that needs to be overcome. I feel like the way that you stop this apathetic behavior is you make it what we're doing exciting. We're not just sitting around and talking about debating printing allocations, which are no doubt important. But I mean, that's not something necessarily that needs to be spun to make people want to be interested in it. I feel that moving into, like I said before, like the 21st century, having that Twitter, that Facebook, something, so what's going on. People probably wouldn't be interested in U.S. politics or global politics if they couldn't really know what was going on in them. It would be, well, if there was no news, then how or why would you even think about being interested? I feel like the way to gain that interest and get rid of the, this culture that we have right now is to put ourselves out there more with the branding events and providing a summary of what actually happened at our meetings and make it readily available and something that you really can't avoid running into, whether be on a small section of the orbit that people are going to run into when they're looking at weekend events, or on someone's Facebook newsfeed or a tweet that they get sometime during the day. I feel like that's the way that you change that culture.
Thanks, John. Okay, so this last question is a two-part question, and the first part is molten or thorn, and then please make a brief closing statement about your candidacy. Go for it, Dani. And you can't say both.
I wasn't going to say both. I'm very decisive. It's not like I'm going to abolish Thorn or anything, but I'm sorry, I'm a diehard Molten fan. Lived in Winthrop, lived in Burnett. It was slightly closer when I lived in Burnett. I tend to call student activities my home base this year, and Molten just a little bit closer. I'm from Miami. I don't do well with the cold and walking for long distances. And then to the stuff that actually matters about my candidacy. I think something I just want to stress is that the things you see on my posters, the things that are in my platform, the other 35 ideas I have listed on this piece of paper in front of me, they're all things that aren't just picked out of the air and said, wow, this would be really awesome if it happened, I voted. It was something that I know what's going on. I know that there are conversations in different committees on campus talking about this. I know that this is possible. I know that it hasn't tried or failed. I have that institutional knowledge, and I think that's really important. I think it's really important that whoever is directing and delegating the officers of the BSG not only understands what all of their roles are, but has the memory to be able to say, hey, this is a fight that we shouldn't be picking this year. You know, this is something that we should put and pass on to future generations, or this is ready, this is a ripe issue. We need to talk about this now, and we need to be doing this now. You need someone who understands what should be delegated and what should be kind of waited on a little bit, because unfortunately, Bowdoin is just like any other place that has politics. Administrators have and departments have their own agendas, and we need to be working with them rather than simply pushing against them at every point and every turn.
Thanks, Danny. Same to you, John.
I'd have to disagree. I guess I would definitely prefer Thorn. Actually, I live in Winthrop too, but I make the trek out there because I just love it so much, you know. So, on to Danny said, a more important issue. I feel as though, you know, you may have seen my posters or my Facebook page, and I obviously have a platform and things that I want to pursue this year, but I want to make it clear that by no means, you know, are those the only things that I want to pursue, or am I closed off from ideas? I feel that's something that BSG can improve on, and you know, if I'm elected, I will try to improve on, is getting more input from the students. You know, whether that be surveys or anything, or just walking up, you know, spending time talking to people, like going around the tables at Molten or Thorn, and figuring out like what people want. And so I really want to strive for that, and as I said before, getting the students more involved. And to address the concern that was brought up earlier about my experience, I feel that truly that can be overcome, and I will be easily able to overcome that through my experience with class council as well as BSG. I feel like mixed together, those will definitely be enough to be able to allow me to guide BSG into the next year, and hopefully create some programs that are beneficial to the students and sustainable.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you everybody for coming out tonight. I believe voting begins on Friday morning at 8 a.m., is that correct? And runs through Sunday night, 8 p.m. Get your votes in.
Thanks, Nick and Jim.